Very good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ben Espinosa. I'm a grants manager here at the LA City Department of Cultural Affairs. I'm joined by my fabulous colleague, Serena Kasane. Hi, Serena. And today we're going to spend a little bit of time to talk about DCA's near and co-op grants. A little housekeeping items before we move forward. We have a number of people in the room today. We do invite questions as we go through today's presentation. Please take advantage of the chat feature in your Zoom screen. I will be asking Serena to monitor those questions, asking her to group similar questions and concerns, and we'll pause at opportune times during the presentation to address those concerns. Our goal today is to spend around 30 minutes or so just going over the basics of the near and co-op grant programs, eligibility, application requirements, typical projects. And then we're going to shift into actually doing a sample proposal on DCA's application platform called SurveyMonkey Apply. Our goal today is to help folks who are brand new to these artist residency grant offerings, a little bit of familiarity about them, to hopefully embrace the opportunity to take arts to areas of the city where they are more absent or scarce, and to help avoid avoid application pitfalls as you're preparing a compelling proposal for our consideration. So today's session is going to go over these two grant programs. We're talking specifically about the 2026-2027 fiscal year, which begins July 1 of next year in 2026. That's many months in the future. So obviously we're talking about opportunities and possibilities many months in the future. So let's think about what kind of projects we can put together for things that will take place in the 26 and 27 fiscal year. All right, with that, let's move on. Let's start off by talking a little bit about what these programs are all about. These are our artist residency grants. It's about supporting individual freelance artists to carry out community-based practices and projects across the city's 15 council districts. They come in two flavors with us. One we call the Neighborhood Engagement Artist Residency, NEAR grants. These are $12,000 grants to individual freelance teaching artists to carry out a multi-week, participatory, creative, skill-building art workshops with members of the public that culminates in some sort of public presentation that many more people can attend and experience. The other flip side of this is our Creative Optimism and Uplifting Promises grant program. These are grants of up to $15,000 that nonprofit social justice organizations apply for. The nonprofit organization applies for the grant. They serve as the lead applicant. And in their proposal, they name a specific freelance teaching artist to carry out the specific project in service of the nonprofit's community. All of these projects must take place in the city of Los Angeles, we are a city funder, in spaces and venues where the arts are absent or scarce. That's what makes this particular duo of grant programs particularly special for us. It's kind of our secret weapon about bringing the arts to all places across the city. We know there are museums, there are concert halls, theater spaces where arts programming typically thrives. By virtue of supporting a freelance teaching artist who are mobile, we can take the arts to places where they're absent or scarce. Let's talk about the primary goals of this program. I kind of highlighted a few of those things. We want to bring arts to places across the entire city, across 15 council districts, and at the same time support the jobs of our local excellent teaching artists. We prescribe a very generic kind of like project structure for folks. We want our artists and to think about how they can carry out 11 or so sessions of participatory workshops with the public about around any community relevant topical theme of their choice. That culminates in some sort of public presentation that's advertised and marketed to the general public, especially around the community. So generally speaking, this winds up being a multi-week residency where you're serving around 20 or so participants, youth or adults. And then after the end of that series, it culminates in some sort of public presentation where you show off the great art learning and creativity that's taken place over those several weeks. One of the main goals of this, as I mentioned, is to support the jobs of a lead teaching artist. We have applicants who come to us with really compelling projects where they bring in guest artists, other participating artists. So those all translate into other jobs that these grants can support. And the other great goal of these duo grant programs is really expanding the embrace of arts and cultural programming at social justice, nonprofit organizations, other venues where they have limited exposure, previous experience with bringing the arts to their community. We've had some really great, experience with artists who really served as major advocates and ambassadors for really wonderful community-based groups who didn't really have a big arts or creative component to their programming offerings that this program has helped stimulate. So that's one of our goals there as well. Let's take a minute to talk about eligibility, who's eligible to apply. As I mentioned before, we have two flavors. If you are applying for a NEAR grant, that means you are an individual freelance teaching artist who lives in the county of Los Angeles. That's a bigger region, countywide, proposing a project that takes place within the municipal boundaries of the city of Los Angeles. So let's make sure one of the first pitfalls with applicants be up to this grant program is the conflation of the county of LA and the city of LA. For eligibility purposes, we love to support artists in our region, and we define that as LA County. But because we are a city funder, we need to support projects that take place within the boundaries of our city. Applicants for near residency should have at least 2 or more years of producing the type of work that they're proposing to do in the proposal. And as I mentioned, they need to work with a venue or host organization that currently does not offer arts programming. So it's typically a non-art space or working with a nonprofit with limited arts programming. The other side is the co-op residency. Applicants to this are nonprofit organizations with a social justice mission. These are organizations with at least $100,000 in operating revenue in its most recently completed fiscal year. You would demonstrate that by submitting a 990 as part of your proposal, where you show you're an organization operating around that size. I'll flag that another limitation is that a specific teaching artist can be named only once per NEAR co-op grant cycle as either the main applicant for a NEAR proposal or a named lead teaching artist in the co-op residency proposal. I'll pause here for a quick moment, Serena, if there are any questions coming from our participants.
None right now, but maybe if they want to
Okay.
take this opportunity to drop any in.
Okay. And while people consider those questions, let me take a moment to define what we mean by a social justice organization. It's a very broad term, lots of definitions for this. For the purposes of our NEAR co-op grant program, we define it specifically as a social justice nonprofit with a board-approved, publicly available mission that has a very specific cause for equality in their mission in the areas of cultural, economic, environmental justice, or equity related to immigration, healthcare, or housing. So in addition to that, such nonprofit organizations should have some experience and history advocating for adjustments in public policies to correct those injustices, and at the same time have some community-based programming history where they address those very same historic and current inequities. So please consider that a specific definition for our purposes for this grant program. So
We
let's
did
talk.
get
Yes,
a question, Ben, asking how many grants are going to be offered in total?
Okay, great. It's a good question. And let me go back to the overview slide when we talk about these $12,000, $15,000 grants. As I mentioned before, we're talking about the 2026-2027 fiscal year, which is several months in the future. We won't know what the City of LA budget is for that fiscal year until around the April and May timeframe. And we can't, it's the budget climate across the board and, a range of government agencies is very challenging right now, but we continue to advocate for continued funding for this very important grant program. Historically, we've been able to support approximately 15 to 17 projects, combined NEAR and co-op projects across the city at these funding levels. Sometimes based on the number of quality proposals submitted, we may support multiple projects within a single council district, but we endeavor to submit at least one artist project in each of the 15 council districts. So that's why we kind of hover around that 15, 16, 17 number. Not guaranteed, however, all those numbers are subject to change depending on what the final 2026-2027 budget is. Okay, let's talk about what these projects look like. So it's really quite a wide variety of potential initiatives. We support projects that are community-based in nature, taking place in publicly accessible spaces and venues. Um, Reach out to us if you plan to work with a nonprofit or community organization with more with more sensitive kind of populations where limited access is probably likely. If you're working with people within a domestic violence shelter, within youth who are engaged in the criminal justice system, we understand public access can be limited, but at the same time, this is one of those special programs we don't want to deprive such communities of artistic and cultural services. So reach out to us. We may offer some exceptions to this rule about publicly accessible spaces. But generally speaking, we're interested in sustainable activities, emphasize a creative process, community participation, skill building around any artistic discipline. We have a wide range. It can be dance, music, theater, visual arts, multimedia arts, film, what am I missing? Culinary arts, all of those things. We want you to come to us with your expertise and your background working with a range of organizations to tell us about how that suite of programming is applicable and relevant to the population you want to serve. Uh, the other important element, as I mentioned before, is that this multi-week period of skill building and community participation should culminate in a public presentation. If you're working with kids over a period of 11 weeks with drawing, animation, other visual art skills, think about programming one celebratory event in the end where you get to showcase the great work that those kids did, where you can invite their friends and families and other members of that neighborhood to see the great work that they've done. I've included here some images of some recent projects we've supported in the past. I it's reflective of the wide range of artistic forms. We've had, storytelling, writing workshops with elders living with HIV in a hospital setting, culminating in a public reading to the public. We've supported a dance artist and choreographer to work with kids at a youth facility in South LA for a hip hop dance residency grounded around healing. We supported a film artist to produce a free filmmaking workshop for kids in a recreation center in the San Fernando Valley, where they build basic skills around filmmaking and animation, culminated in the screening of those kids' films. We have artists working with elders at the LGBT Center for a photography workshop series that culminates in a photography exhibit that's open to the public. We have another artist that works with the healthcare providers at Kaiser Permanente in the Valley to find the rare moments of time when they can engage in a creative, fun experience of learning drawing, visual art experiences, culminating in a public exhibition of those health practitioners' work. So you can see it runs a gamut. We want artists to tell us where they want to go, tell us about the non-arts organization and host venues they want to participate with, and areas where in the city they want to activate through the arts. I think it's worth highlighting as well some of the things that these monies cannot be used for. In all those prior examples, the primary expense for a $12,000 or $15,000 grant is to support the salaries of the teaching artists facilitating these workshops. These are non-matching grants, so when you come to us with a proposal, think about how you can allocate $12,000 or $15,000 primarily to pay yourself as a teaching artist, but we understand there are additional expenses as part of a successful project like space rental, disposable supplies and materials, marketing materials to ensure people are aware of the offering and are aware of the public presentation. These are things that you should build into a budget too. But these are some of the things you should think about that you cannot use city money for. Number one, I hope it's obvious, we can't support projects taking place outside the city of LA. So if you're thinking about projects taking place in Santa Monica, Culver City, Inglewood, Carson, these are all separate cities outside of LA City that you cannot propose projects in. We have unincorporated parts of LA County that are also ineligible. Areas like Altadena, Marina del Rey, Topanga. These are all areas outside of the city. So be mindful of the geography of your proposed activities. We can't support projects that are closed or invitation only to the invitation only or events that are closed to the general public. Except for that exception, if you're working in the juvenile detention facility, working with veterans and things like that, we're in the space where it's more limited access. Purchasing computers, photocopy machines, cameras, or other depreciable assets. DCA money can't be used toward those, although you can rent equipment like that using your DCA grant. Anything related to cash prizes, competitions, awards, food, beverage, hotels, hospitality, travel, flying, airplane tickets can't be used with DCA money either. Projects that are primarily religious in nature or intent, not a good fit for us. And projects at schools where you're not doing at least 14 hours of workshops, and including at least one after-school, evening, weekend performance that's marketed to the public. Something that's not on this list as well is anything that might have a commercial or for-profit nature, where you're building as part of your budget, a revenue stream that's meant to be funding beyond as a profit-making effort. Those are also not allowed. I'll take a moment to talk about what it means to have a really good relationship with your host venue. Number one, thing that helps convince panelists that the project can be successful is if they're proposing at a location where there's clear support for the work and artistic and creative work that's going to take place. One of the things you'll be uploading as part of your proposal is a letter of support from your proposed venue. In this letter, they have your host has an opportunity to articulate, the range of resources they can contribute towards your project. Oftentimes, that can be simple as assuring that you'll have a space conducive for safe, productive learning and assembly. Great host venues will have a mission that's kind of aligned with your goals and intent as an artist. And if you are, an educator, an arts educator working in the field, working with adults who are leaving the criminal justice system, engaging in reentry into our society. If you're working with a nonprofit with a similarly aligned mission, that's the kind of alliance and alignment that panelists love to see with your proposed project. Great host organizations are also able to offer other resources, maybe in terms of volunteer staffing, coordinating events with participants, marketing the events to their participants and the general public. One of the jobs of a grantee under Near and Co-op is to ensure that you have a pretty steady attendance in your planned series of workshops and experiences. Your host organization should be able to help you a lot with that, because in the ideal scenario, you're working with a host agency that already has a built-in audience. If you're at a youth transitional facility, you'll have the host will have a range of kids who will hopefully be very eager to participate in your arts and creative offerings. If you're working in a hospital setting, you'll hopefully have residents there who are already in line, eager to register for your workshops. So those are the things you want to talk to your host organization about, like to what extent they can ensure strong enrollment for your program and marketing it to the public. Insurance is also an important conversation item with your host venue. These grants result in a city contract where you, as either a freelance teaching artist or you as a co-op nonprofit organization, engage in a contract with the City of LA. City of LA has some insurance expectations if you're going to contract with us for delivery of services, and that includes liability insurance, covering the period of work that you're going to be doing, and more we're seeing that especially projects and emphasizing services to youth, especially young kids, 12 years and under, sexual misconduct insurance might be a requirement imposed by the city, given especially in light of the historic liability payouts the County of LA has engaged in due to the misconduct that's been carried out in the past. So those are conversations to have with your potential host venue as well. Moving on, if we don't have any questions, let's spend another minute on the geographic distribution of projects. Yes, Serena.
We do have a question. They would like to know if you can clarify about a project that is working with a public school is allowed for the grant.
Great. So generally speaking, public schools for DCA are not necessarily public spaces. These are not spaces that Serena or I can easily go to in the middle of the day and say, hey, we hear there's a workshop going on there that DCA funds, can we go check it out? Unless we have a kid enrolled, probably not an easy space for us to get into. So public schools can be okay if they are taking place after school and if you're inviting participation, not just from the kids enrolled in the school, but other kids in the neighborhood who might be homeschooled, who might be attending other schools to engage in the public activities. So if it's taking place in the after-school setting on the school campus, those are generally okay. And in all cases, there needs to be some sort of culminating presentation showcasing the children's work that's scheduled after school hours in the evenings or weekends where Serena and I can roll up and just show up and experience the great work the kids experience over those last several weeks. I hope that answers the
Thank you.
question.
Ben, we have one more question about if they're doing a culinary arts project proposal, are there special health department requirements?
That's a great question. In the food security, food equity, access to, nutritious, safe food is definitely something that we love to explore the intersection with in the arts and cultural world, and that's a neat topic. But we do need to operate within the limitations of what city funding can be used for. Um, in any project involving food, I would advise applicants to emphasize a project budget that talks about um, using your DCA grant money primarily to pay yourself as a teaching artist for your salaries and creative fees. Um, there can be some, and when it comes to let me think about this, food being prepared and served to participants or attendees, think about charging a nominal dollar amount from participants to cover that, uh, to limit any kind of risk exposure that we might get to someone getting sick from food that was freely given away as part of an event. Better that there is some nominal fee charge for that uh, uh, element of the project. Um, Other considerations are if you're working with a nonprofit group involved in the project, think about um, exploring with their insurance provider specific coverages for an event that emphasizes food preparation and consumption. It's kind of a new area for the projects that we fund. But we love the idea of the intersection of food equity and arts and culture, but I can't speak of any projects that I know of where liability claims arose from people getting sick from food, but it will be a concern that our risk manager will want to look at. So it's definitely something you want to talk to your host agency, host nonprofit about, to have a conversation with their insurance provider to see if that can be a coverage provided for your project.
Thanks, Ben. That's all the questions for now.
As I mentioned before, we have 15 council districts in the city of LA. With Near and Co-op, we would love to be able to fund at least one artist in each of the 15 council districts, and we lobby hard, advocate for a city budget, DCA grant budget that will make that happen. Um, that being said, there are areas of the city, like in South LA and the far-flung parts of the San Fernando Valley, even the far west side, where art services are especially scarce and absent. And if our budget allows, we might ask applicants, highly ranked applicants, to do multiple projects in those council districts. You'll see as part of the application, we ask applicants to list first choice, second choice, and third choice venue and partner. We encourage all applicants to take advantage of those secondary and tertiary options just in case. Let's say we get applicants and no one proposed any services in council district 6, and your first choice was in council district 3. You're going to get recommended to do something out in the 3rd district on San Fernando in the West Valley. But then we didn't get any applicants for the 6th district. We might come to you and ask, hey, we see that you had a second choice venue in the sixth council district which is Van Nuys and Panorama City. Would you like to do a secondary project there too? So it opens up options for applicants and increases your chance for getting funded for a project somewhere. As for a visual to see these council districts, here's a visual map of the city of LA. All those color shaded areas represent a council district. So it goes all the way up to the northwest and West Hills and Canoga Park, the far north in like Sunland, Tahunga, and all the way down to Long Beach out there, that little strip to the 15th district. So a good resource for you as you're considering venues and partners is to utilize this online searchable Google map. The URL is up there in the top right portion of the screen. It's a searchable Google map where you can type in an address, type in the name of a partner, and it'll plop a pin on the map. If it's not in any of these color shaded areas, that suggests you're proposing a partner outside of LA City. And then if it is in a colored area, you know exactly what council district it's in. Another good tool is the neighborhood info tool, .lacity.org, where you can punch in an address and then based on the address, if it's in LA City, it'll give you a range of information about it, including representatives as well as council district. Before we jump into a sample application, let's have a little snapshot of what we'll be asking you to submit as part of your near and co-op proposal. There's some basic information about yourself, your home resident address, basic information about your project and your proposed venues, and of course a narrative description of what you plan to do with a $12,000 grant. You'll upload a project budget, kind of outlining that's one of the attachments. I jumped ahead, attachment T, a project budget kind of outlining your spending plan for a $12,000 or $15,000 grant. You'll upload host letters from your proposed venue partners and host partners, artistic samples showcasing your previous experience. Since many of the projects that we support are very much teaching in nature, we always recommend artistic work samples that kind of demonstrate an applicant's ability to facilitate a workshop, as well as giving panelists a glimpse of what a culminating presentation looks like in terms of the quality of the work presented, as well as the attendance and the engagement of the audience in attendance. Of course, the teaching artist resume showcasing multiple years of history, at least 2 years of experience performing the kind of work you're proposing to do. We talked about the budget, and then finally supplementary materials. You have an opportunity to upload 3 items that kind of showcase outside voices and perspectives of the great work that you do. So these are letters of support, any kind of reviews or write-ups about your work and your previous projects. These are optional, but as any savvy grant writer will know, you take advantage of every optional item as an extra opportunity to put your best foot forward. So do take advantage of those optional items. Let's take a peek at the snapshot of our timeline. We are now in October. We're doing these workshops now. We're going to post recordings of this. We'll answer questions via email, set up coaching calls as needed to help applicants prepare a submission by the October 31st application deadline. So get that in much earlier than that. That way you can have a fun, stress-free Halloween weekend. Get it in before October 31. That way you can take advantage of the resources from DCA as you prepare that proposal. You won't hear from us for a while after you submit that proposal. After you submit, the grant staff will review the proposals for eligibility. We're going to be busy recruiting community peer panel experts to read these and score these grant proposals. And then we set that up in time for a budget request that we're going to submit to the city, the approval of which we expect around May, giving us the opportunity to finally reach out to folks about the status of their applications around June. You'll hear from us in May and June regarding the results of your proposal submission. Those recommended for funding will get appointments with us to sign a city contract for your services. In time for services to be delivered no earlier than July 1st of 2026, all the way to June 30th, 2027. It's a 12-month period, but projects submitted in this grant program will generally not last longer than around 3 or 4 months. So it's a 12-month period that we ask you to think about where are you going to place, around 12, 13 weeks of work. All right, I'll pause for questions here. You're muted, Serena.
Oh, there we go. We have someone asking if all of the workshops need to be in person or if they can be also online or a mix of online and in person.
It's a good question. We we can, especially if the nature of the work and the audience that you're trying to reach necessitates an online component. We invite online elements. Where possible, do emphasize in person where you can. A caveat with in-person with online virtual activities is that it's important to make clear in your proposal that these online workshops are produced from a space or venue within the city of LA. That's an important consideration, given that we are a city funder and that we need to support projects produced here now and within the city. So you can do that as long as you make clear in your proposal that it's going to be facilitated from your home studio based in LA City, reaching your intended audience. With online services, we understand that one of the best perks of that is that you can reach an audience far and beyond our region. And that's great, especially when it comes to the culminating presentation. It is important for us, though, if you are going to incorporate online virtual activities as a major part of your project, that you include a clear strategy about how you're going to ensure that you're reaching audiences, residents, and visitors here within our region. So wonderful that you might reach folks outside of California, even worldwide. But as a city funder, it is important that we reach people here. So include a strategy on how you're going to ensure you're going to do that, whether it's through detailed registration forms, advanced Google Analytics, Zoom Analytics to understand where people are coming from. Um, these are the kinds of tools that you'd want to be able to take advantage of and make a clear strategy for using to convince us and your panelists that you are primarily reaching a local audience.
Hi, I was the one who asked the question. So I just want to clarify that it's usually if I have an online component, it is to accommodate folks who might have problem reaching the place at workshop, like folks with maybe mobility issues or transportation issues. And this brings up actually a question I have. Do I need to make sure that all the participants also resigned inside the city of Los Angeles?
That's so in response to your first comment, terrific, wonderful. We as I mentioned, we understand the benefits of online virtual programming can reach a wider audience, including folks who might have difficulty accessing services otherwise. So that's a great justification for incorporating that in your proposed project. Second question regarding, is it your responsibility to ensure folks reside within LA City? The answer is no. Um, our expectation is that you're working with a host organization venue with an established list of folks who are residing within the area, and it's an expectation that people who would show up at the final culminating event are also in and of the area. When you're facilitating a primarily in-person project, we think it's a fair assumption that most folks are from the area.
Thank you. I appreciate your answers.
Okay, we
Okay.
have another question asking, is it better to apply to those areas that are arts underserved or a more personally connected host organization?
That's a great question. I think it's the answer is if it's a balance that you need to be able to kind of uh, assess as you're making that decision. We call these grants near grants in part because in the most ideal case, the applying freelance teaching artist has a very close connection, a near connection to their proposed venue and host organization. Um, I would emphasize that personal connection to the mission and with the host organization beyond the geography, and then geography second, as a secondary consideration. That connection between artists and hosts really resonates with panels, and it's one of our scoring criteria. So I think it's a good thing to highlight that. That said, not a bad idea if you have really like secondary for your secondary or third choice host partners to be strategic about including areas outside of that geography in response to one of our focus of funding services in arts underserved areas. It gives you more options, but I would recommend emphasizing that personal connection with your proposed venue first.
Thank you, Ben. We also have a question regarding the letters of support. Are letters from partners of past projects with arts organizations valid, or is it best to focus on letters of support from non-arts organizations?
Both types are great examples to include as supplementary materials and as part of your supplementary uploads. If it could depend on what you're trying to convey to the panelists. If you're trying to demonstrate to the panelists, your artistic and creative bona fides as evidenced by, a glowing letter of support from a local arts organization, that's a great thing to upload as part of your supplementary material. But you also want to be able to demonstrate to the panelists your ability to go into spaces where arts are not necessarily, uh, uh, strongly programmed. So having a letter of support from a nonprofit group, a past participant who had limited exposure to your programming in the past, could show the impact of your programming into an unfamiliar space to panelists too. So both are great examples. I would encourage you to include both.
That's all the questions. Oh, we just got another one. Does our second and third choice of project host need to also provide a letter of interest?
Not necessarily, although it can help. One of the things we'll see as we jump into the application is that you'll tick off an option where you indicate your working history with your named venue, whether you worked, this is a brand new organization you've never really worked with it before in the past, or one that you've worked with for at least a year, for at least 5 years, as a way of demonstrating to panelists kind of the likelihood that you'll have a successful partnership if you're recommended for funding. I would strongly recommend a host letter for your first choice. If you can get them for your second and third, that is a way of doing even better with our panelists, but it is not required. Okay.
Thank you,
I
Ben.
have up on the screen now the landing page for our near and co-op grants. I hope you've all had a chance to read this already. Probably already saw it because it's how you registered for the workshop. I'm going to go into a section that's always worth highlighting before we jump into the application, and that is the panel review process, because I always encourage grant applicants to always understand and have in the back of their minds what are the criteria I'm going to be rated against as I prepare my proposal. So for these two grant programs, we have 4 criteria that we ask our panelists to evaluate you on, 4 equal categories. So let's take a moment to talk about them real fast. The first one is administrative capability. This accounts for 1/4 of your score. This is where panelists are assessing, how well put together and clear and easy to understand your overall proposal is. I like to call it the fit and finish of your package proposal. Do your goals make sense? Is it clearly articulated? Do you have a budget that reflects the most likely expenses that you'll be experiencing? Is it fair and accurate? Do you have a list of, does your resume articulate history and experience and credentialing that befits the goals of your project narrative, as well as serving the intended participants? These are all things that kind of define your administrative capacity. Ideas and innovations is another 1/4 of your ranking score. Is this the way of demonstrating to the panelists how exciting and relevant and your proposed topics and themes and art and creative work is? We are intentional about saying and/or innovation because we have lots of applicants who come to us with more kind of classical, traditional, or historic projects where Innovation isn't necessarily, the prime objective. If it's a good idea and that's been tried and true, not necessarily new and fresh, but with a great track record of success, that can also be rewarded under our ideas and or innovation criterion. Impact and relevance. This is a very important criterion. This is where you show panelists that you have this stated set of goals and outcomes. You have to demonstrate to panelists how well you've achieved those goals and outcomes in the past with your prior experience. This is to the extent that you've reached our funding priority. How well can you reach our priority of bringing the arts to places where they're absent or scarce, where you can showcase the impact your program has had on prior participants. So survey data, evaluation data, unsolicited letters of support from past participants can really go a long way in showcasing your program's impact and relevance. And finally, quality and community partnerships. We are looking here for how strong are your relationships and with your proposed arts venue, with your proposed venue, nonprofit partner, and their community. We want to understand if there are other collaborators in your project, whether or not there are other artists, other social service agencies or groups who have similar missions aligned with the work that you're carrying out. We're looking for other evidence of high quality programming beyond your artistic samples, where if you're including supplementary materials like curriculum, lesson plans, and again, letters of support showcasing the high quality of your work. So those are the four main criteria. I always encourage you to have in the back of your mind, because everything that you enter in the application should somehow be responding to one or more of those four criteria. Okay, so with that, let's jump into an application. There's the apply button, where you'll find the link to SurveyMonkey Apply, which is the online platform we used for this grant program. So here is the landing page. Let me move my screen a bit. I can't see this. Okay, I can't hide this. All right, there you go. All right. When you get to this page, if you haven't already created a SurveyMonkey Apply account, you're going to want to click on this register button and click on that. Once you've done that, you'll be able to log in into the platform. I have a pending application here, but if you're logging in for the first time, this will be empty for you. To apply, you'll click on the programs button here on the top. You'll see the various programs that are currently live on the DCA platform. The one we're talking about today is the Near and Co-op program. We're going to click on that More button, and you're going to see a green Apply button here. I don't have the green button right now because I already started one, so let's take a look at that. So this is the dashboard. You can think of it as a checklist of your to-do items for submitting a proposal to Near and Co-op. The list of your to-dos are included here. Anything denoted with like a grayed out circle is an item that's yet to be completed. Something with a half moon icon like this indicates something you've started but haven't clicked on complete. And anything with a green check mark is something that you've completed, ready to go. You won't be able to click on the submit button until you have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the first 5 check marks completed. Supplementary materials are optional, but again, you are our A+ grant writers, so you're going to be completing that also. Co-op nonprofit organization applicants have to upload an IRS Form 990 from their most recently completed filing. And we have 2 optional items here where you can provide some feedback about your work as a practicing teaching artist, and feedback on the grant application process itself. So let's jump in. First item is the proposal. It's the meatiest part of your submission. There's 3 pages of this proposal, so we'll go over those 3 pages now. The first page is very simply a little bit of information about you as either a freelance teaching artist, if you're submitting a Near proposal. If you're submitting a co-op proposal, we'll ask for more organizational information, such as your organization's legal IRS filing name, and about your operating budget and your physical address within LA County. Most folks in our webinar today are freelance artists, so let's focus on the near proposal as a sample. We need basic information about yourself, including your address. We do check that this address is in LA County. Make sure that is there. If you're planning to apply and you live in Irvine or other parts of Orange County, Riverside County, you're not eligible, unfortunately. So make sure your address here is an LA County address. And we ask for a little bit of information about that address you've entered there. If you're outside the city of LA, you're going to enter this button elsewhere in LA County and ensure where you're based. You might enter here Santa Monica, Culver City, Inglewood, Compton, Altadena, etc. You're not in the city of LA. If you're in the city of LA, you're going to be in one of our 15 council districts. My sample address is here in downtown LA, which is the 14th district. Again, to find your council district, take advantage of this neighborhood info tool where you can type in an address, or go back to that searchable Google map of the city council districts. Second page, you tell us a little bit more information about your proposed project and your proposed venues. So one of the first things we ask for is a project name or title. I have a sample here. It's very benign, storytelling workshops in Pacoima. I challenge you to come up with something a little bit more flashy and a little more razzle dazzle than that. And you're free to do that. Please enter the name of the lead teaching artist for your proposed project. In most cases, it's going to be back to yourself. If you're a co-op applicant, very important that you name a specific teaching artist here that will match the CV and resumes that you're going to be uploading as part of your proposal. If you're a freelance teaching artist, you're going to probably name yourself as a lead. If you have other participating artists, like a guest artist, visiting artist, that's terrific. Their names should not be included here. Instead, you'll have an opportunity to upload their resumes and CVs in a separate section. Project start end dates. Again, this should be in some period within this 12-month window of July 1, 2026 to June 30, 2027. Most projects, as I mentioned, won't last more than 3 or 4 months. So enter your planned start date. And my example here, I have a 4th of July start, finishing in fall, October 15. Oftentimes, your project end date is likely the date of your culminating presentation, of your public culminating event. So I repeated October 15 here. Some basic numerical metrics about your project engagement. Number of artists engaged by your project. This will at least be one, yourself, and include any of those other supporting visiting artists here as well. If you're engaging a photographer, a videographer to document your work, and I encourage you to do that, please count them as artists as well and include them in that count. So number of participants. So this is imagine an 11-week residency, 11-week series of workshops. Think about the number of people that will be consistently attending those 11 sessions. In the best case scenario, it'll be the very same people attending every time, because we think of these grants as supporting workshops that are very sequential in nature. But we understand, depending on the population you're reaching, that can be difficult. So address that somewhere in your narrative about what your expectations and goals are, about who's attending consistently, and what are some of your strategies to ensure that consistent attendance. Our grant contracts around these programs have an expectation that you'll have approximately 20 people attending across these workshop sessions. So build that in your project planning with your host agency and partner. Audience members should be a much larger number than participants. This is the people that you anticipate showing up for that culminating presentation. Our grant contracts for this grant program stipulate an expectation of around 40 or more community members will be attending, and that excludes the workshop participants and the project, the teaching artists and the program staff. That's audience members. Okay, this is why we start listing off our planned partners. So first choice is the most important one, obviously. Enter their name here. Enter their address and indicate which council district they're based in. So here's that pull down menu I mentioned earlier, where you show the panelists kind of a sense of your working history with this partner. You have these 4 options. If it's a brand new organization, that's okay, but do know that might raise a little more scrutiny among panelists. They'd want to see some evidence that you've had some really productive conversations with this host organization. And then beyond that, you can indicate your working history with them. We have lots of applicants apply to us every year. They work with the same partner for more than 3 years, decades. But we've also seen some successful applicants who are proposing project with brand new folks, organizations they worked with less than a year. So all levels of experience working with the organization are welcome. We add a specific question here around insurance. And so it's important because this is often the sticking point for freelance teaching artists who we contract with. Come contracting time, we say, congratulations, you're approved for a $12,000 grant. We're filling out contract paperwork. One of the things that you need to be able to show us is minimum general liability covering the period you're proposing work for. Oftentimes, this might wind up being special event insurance coverage that the teaching artist purchases on their own. Oftentimes more affordable than purchasing a year-long policy. But obviously, the best cost savings can be had if you have a really productive conversation with your host organization, who's very excited to have you in their spaces working with their community, and they will take the extra step of adding you as an additional insured to their insurance. As I mentioned earlier, if your project is primarily focused on serving youth participants, especially very young kids, 12 and under, it's possible that the city will impose sexual misconduct insurance as a requirement as well. Keep that in mind as you're considering project directions. Excuse me. I've left my second and third choice is blank in this example. You're going to be smarter than me and fill those out with some alternatives just to maximize your chance for being recommended for funding. And then the last page of the proposal section are the narrative components of your submission. Please tell us in 1,200 words or less your project specifications. This is where you break down your proposed project in very simple to understand language for the panelists. I propose 11 sessions of beginner film making workshops serving youth audience of ages 16 through 18 at a community recreation center in South LA. Each session will consist of such and such and such. We'll go over workshop sessions will result in participants learning XYZ. It will culminate in a public screening hosted at such and such venue, reaching an audience of yada, yada, yada. So those are the specifics that you want to be able to articulate here. The who, what, when, where, and how of your 12, 13, 14, 15-week residency. Important to underscore here a timeline of planned activities, dates, topics of the material to be covered, the desired learning arc and learning goals. If you're working with folks who have never had any experience with your art form, please articulate what the goals are over 11 sessions. If you're working with a more advanced group of participants, tell us what those learning outcomes look like also. We have projects who work with a variety of populations. It could be people with disabilities. It could be new immigrants to the United States. It could be elder seniors living in a facility. This is an opportunity to highlight the compatible experience and credentialing you as a teaching artist have that suits your ability to reach those groups effectively. Great to draw connections between your resume and your target audience in this section. Next, please tell us a little bit more about the specific community to be served and your partnership. This is where you get to highlight the synergy between with you as an artist, your practice, and the mission of your participating host venue and organization. This, as I mentioned earlier, this is the stuff that really resonates with panelists. They love to see strong connections between the host organization and the teaching artist. Impact and evaluation. This goes a long way in getting great scores in the impact and quality scoring criterion. We want to understand what strategies you're going to be integrating to ensure that you're meeting your goals with your project. Are you utilizing pre and post surveys? Are you monitoring for quality? How are you monitoring for quality over the course of 11 weeks? What strategies can you employ to allow for course correction and adjustments to meet the needs of your target group? These are the types of strategies and tools you want to highlight in the section. So you're giving panelists a sense of um, uh, your plans for ensuring you're delivering quality programming. Okay, and with that, you can sign this off with your certification, and that's the narrative portion of your proposal. Everything else now is just a matter of uploading files and supplementary materials. Before that, I'm going to mark this as complete. I'll pause here, Serena, if there are any questions regarding the proposal portion of the application.
Someone is asking if this info session will be available online later, and if it's possible to schedule a private chat for specific questions.
Certainly. So yes, the answer is yes to both questions. The staff availability in the grants team is quite limited. So do send an email to tca.grants@laca.org to make that request sooner rather than later. And certainly well before the October 31st deadline. The next section is attachment A, project host letters. So this is we kind of give you a prescribed structure for the host letters you'll be uploading as part of your proposal. Highlighting all of those things that we spoke about earlier. Organization name, mission, should not be an arts organization. Remember, we're taking the arts to places where the arts are absent. So if one of your host letters is, I don't know, a creative business incubator or a museum offering its space, probably not a good fit for this grant program. We're taking the arts to places where they're absent. So organization's name and mission, where they describe their client demographics, their willingness and readiness to bring you into their space to reach their clients and their desired goals and impact. Any other sources they're going to contribute towards making your project successful, whether or not that's additional funding, staffing support, logistical support, coordination, and a general statement of commitment that they want to make your project successful. This is not a contract, it's not a promise, it's an intent to support your work. So if there's any hesitation then signing on the dotted line, this is just all to show us, the panelists, that you've had really great conversations and that if recommended for funding, you'll be ready to hit the ground running to carry out your project as you had proposed it. Right, I'm going to upload a placeholder here so I can move on. Attach that. Mark that complete. We're going to go back to our application, and we only have a couple more things to do. The next item up is a project budget. So let's take a look at a sample budget here for a moment. Let me see here. Let's see. Let me open one up so we can look at it together. As you know, the near grant is $12,000. We want to emphasize, where is my share screen? Let me share a sample budget we can look at. We get in the application, you can download a template for a proposed project budget. We've given you a sample here. Please make sure to update the sample and don't copy the sample verbatim. We know what the sample is in. We get worried if your proposed budget looks exactly like this. But it's meant to be illustrative of some of the ways you want you to spend your money. And you'll see that the bulk of funding should be going towards paying yourself. So in this example, it's showing that your DCA grant will primarily go towards paying your salary here in facilitating, in planning, and promoting the work. There's a subset of your grant can go towards other expenses like bringing in other people, teaching artists to participate, more jobs. We love that. We love to use these DCA money towards other artist jobs. And then things like flyers and postage and some contingency. In this example, you can see their partner organization and or the artists also donating some additional funding. These are non-matching grants, so this is not required. Your entire donated column can be blank, But if you have other resources being contributed towards your work, definitely highlight them here for the panelists to see the potential additional value we can get by investing $12,000 in your project. So in this example, you can see that let's say the host venue is going to let you use $9,200 worth of rental equipment. That's terrific. That's great. That's money that's saved and donated by your partnership. Do take advantage of this notes section to highlight and provide additional details about these additional expenses. Panelists love very clear and easy to follow budgets. What you want to avoid is entering numbers here where you'd leave a panel saying, how did they arrive at that number? That number sounds kind of outrageously high, or I don't think they're budgeting enough about paying themselves. So it's important to put together a budget that makes sense, that is fair and accurate, where you're prioritizing the use of DCA money to pay yourself and using additional sources where available to pay for other expenses. All right, stop that. Any questions regarding budgets?
Not regarding budgets, but what about host and venue? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, so someone is asking, is it a requirement that the partner host have their own venue, or is a third-party venue okay?
It's the latter. And that's a great question. Thank you for asking it. Especially in the social justice, social service scene, we understand that partners might have a physical office space, but it's not where programming happens. So the answer is yes. If you're working with a great nonprofit social justice group, social service group, but they don't have a venue, find a suitable space where you can host your workshops and presentation that's conducive to safe and productive work and is accessible to the public. Just ensure that your proposed location and venue is not one where the arts are already present, or otherwise you might be proposing a venue that's ineligible. An example that comes to mind is we had a dance choreographer teaching artists work with a range of kids for a fun multi-week dance workshop series. And they had a culminating show at a local local theater, which is terrific. And that's really wonderful and inspiring for the participating kids to perform in the theatrical and in the art space. That's a great thing. But then you're not meeting our project priority of taking the arts somewhere where they're not, because that obviously as an art space, arts is already there and is currently programmed. So if you're going to do that, and because you want to honor the opportunity for your participants to perform in the art space, build somewhere in your project an opportunity where you are doing a free or low cost presentation that's not at the art space. In the example I'm thinking of, I believe that dancer choreographer planned one of their sessions in their meeting space at the rec center to be an open public rehearsal. An open rehearsal where they marketed it for people to show up and see the in progress dance performance, and they use that as the public presentation to fulfill the terms of their grant. As an added benefit, added value, they included the presentation to the public that took place in the art space. I hope that answers that question. Okay, once you've uploaded the budget, we now get to the section for, oh, I skipped a couple sections, pardon me. Artistic work samples, I had it marked as a check mark, but we don't want to skip this section. With artistic samples, you want to showcase to panelists that you have the experience and skills to deliver the services that you've outlined in your proposal. And one of those ways of doing that is showcasing some really terrific, compelling previous artistic samples. In many instances, a lot of our applicants come to us with a performing arts-based artistic discipline, dance workshops, theatrical, storytelling. These are things I would recommend you can strongly consider providing via clickable URL links. You can submit artistic samples in this proposal via two methods. You can provide 3 hyperlinks you want panelists to click on, or you can submit a series of images, I believe up to 10 images of static images. If you're engaging in a performing arts based workshop, really strongly recommend links, so that way you can link to a YouTube video, a Vimeo link where you're showcasing your facilitation as a teaching artist, and also what the culminating presentation looks like. A great opportunity to show panelists what it feels like to be at the culminating event, have them get a feel for what the quality of the presentation is like and the energy in the room by showing a well-attended audience space. If you go the links route, you can upload up to 3. I recommend including those video links, understanding that in general, we don't ask we don't ask our peer panelists to spend more than 5 to 10 minutes per applicant in reviewing artistic samples. So as you're curating the selection that you're going to include in this section, keep that limitation in mind. If you're uploading a very long video of a youth dance recital, spans an hour long, either shorten that to a much more bite-sized snippet, or advise the panelists, please start at such a time and stop watching at such time. So you're making sure they're seeing exactly what it is you want them to see when they're evaluating your artistic work. Other strategies for utilizing those links, because you only get to do 3 of them, you can upload a link to like a PowerPoint slide deck where you're giving panelists a quick 1-minute tour of like a series of still images of your workshop facilitation in progress, or uploading to a shared Google Drive as another link where you can showcase panelists a curated selection of images and whatnot. So those are some strategies you can utilize the link feature. If you'd rather not do links and upload still images, make sure to upload high quality images of workshops or sessions as they're taking place, and the samples of the completed artwork of your participants. Images and photos can work well for applicants coming to us with a visual arts design-based project concept. Still images of workshops taking place, and still images of the final exhibition as it's mounted and displayed. Okay. The other section I skipped was the teaching artist resume. So please upload here a detailed CV and resume for the lead teaching artist involved in the project. You want to show at least 2 years of experience, and include any important credentials, licensing that makes you qualified to deliver the proposed services, especially if it's reaching targeted populations such as folks with disabilities, senior elders, etc. This is also an opportunity where you can upload multiple resumes, right? Can you do multiple in this section? I think. No, you cannot. So what you can do if you are featuring guest artists, participating partner artists, please prepare your teaching artist resume upload as a combined PDF file where you are starting with the lead teaching artist on top, followed by any other participating collaborating artists. Okay, that's marked completed. Let's jump next to, I think, our final section, which is the supplementary materials. Optional, but again, do take advantage of this. By this time in your proposal, you've spent a lot of time bragging about yourself in the form of CVs, artistic samples, cogent proposal narrative, etc., etc. This is your chance to bring in other voices, other people, outside perspectives about how wonderful you are and how impactful your work is. So take advantage of this to include a letter of support, a testimonial from the participant who attended your workshops last year, whose life has been transformed. We had that question earlier about, a letter of support from an arts organization, kind of substantiating the artistic bona fides of your teaching practice. A non-arts organization you might have worked with in the past who benefited from your programming in the past to show how impactful your work is. Published articles or reviews about you and your practice are also great things to upload here as supplementary materials. If you're a co-op applicant, there's one other required attachment that we need you to upload, and that is a copy of your 990, your most recent filing with the IRS, showing us that you have at least $100,000 in recent operating history. And then we have a final 2 optional items where you can give us a little bit more metrics about your programming in general, as well as feedback for this process. We always invite candid feedback, positive, negative, about how we can improve this from year to year, and we welcome you to take advantage of the opportunity. After you've hit the minimum check marks, you click this button that was previously gray is now green, indicating that you are free to submit. But before submitting, always, please review. I'll highlight a couple of the pitfalls that we get in submissions here. Sometimes folks exceed a word count in a certain section of the narrative, and then they copy and paste from Microsoft Word into their SurveyMonkey apply. It inadvertently truncates their narrative, and so you have an incomplete paragraph or sentence in there. Check your upload files. Another potential pitfall is you upload what you think is a glowing letter of recommendation from a past participant, but you've accidentally re-uploaded your project budget by accident. Bad idea. So double check your files that you're uploading your intended files. I want double check your, let me see here, just general the copy editing. Look for typos, grammatical mistakes. Make sure you ask a friend or two friends to read your narrative components to make sure it comes off as clear and easy to understand. As a general guidance, try to park away the marketing, razzle dazzle language when it comes to the narrative. Keep it kind of boring and technical in nature. Panelists love and appreciate very clear to understand short sentences that kind of describe what exactly it is you want to do. So that's a pitfall you want to avoid. Double check your artistic samples. Make sure that when you're including links that might have any credentials or password requirements, that you either eliminate those requirements, make it super easy for the panelists to click on the video and enjoy your sample, or if you insist on including that, take advantage of the notes section that accompanies a URL where you advise the panelist of the needed password to view a file. We will not have an opportunity to go back to you applicants to fix a file that cannot be accessed, a file that was inadvertently uploaded twice. So these are things you do need to double and triple check in advance before clicking the submit button. All right, I'm going to click the submit button now, and I'll get reminded one last time to review it, double check it, and I'll click on submit, and that will be my sign here that this application has been successfully submitted. In the past, we required paper submissions to accompany this. We've eliminated that. And so thank goodness there is no paper submission that you need to mail to us via snail mail. Once you've submitted your online submission by October 31st, that's the last thing on your to-do list. And then you play the waiting game. Wait for us to get back to you in the May-June timeframe, where we'll advise you of the status of your proposal. So with that, I'll pause here. We have I think we made good time. I have our contact information here if you want to reach out to us. dca.grants@lacd.org is the best way to reach any of us for. We had a request for a private coaching session. You can request that via that email, and we'll try to get you on our calendars as soon as possible. Pausing for questions. I'll even, because we have a little time, I'll open it up if you feel invite you to unmute yourself if you'd like to speak a question. You can type a question. We can spend a couple more minutes here together. All right, not seeing or hearing any. I'll go ahead and close today's meeting. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to learn more about our New Year Co-op grants. I appreciate you doing that. And we are very excited to hear about your proposals and planned activities for the 26-27 fiscal year. This video will be posted on the DCA's YouTube channel, and I would say by end of day tomorrow. But today's already Friday. By Monday midday. And I think that's all I have. Thank you again for spending the time with us today. Take care now, folks.